Okay, this is a very, very brief tutorial on setting up a VTOL of different configurations and where the rotors are located. I actually already did this and then forgot I wasn't streaming, so I'm going to try and do this again. I'm short on time this time because I completely wasted that, so I'll just do it real quick. What you want to have is your seat sending all of its inputs to a gyro, and for the pitch, you're going to send directly to the gyro, directly into your rotors. When you place your rotors, you want to have your bottom one sitting normally. So when you normally place a rotor, your pitch is positive is forward and your roll positive is to the right. When you place one of these down, as you can see, positive is forward for the pitch, positive for the rolls on the right. When you place these down, you'll notice that the pitch is the same for both of these, but the roll is inverted in the one on the top. So what you're doing here is when you place the bottom one, you're then flipping, doing an invert. I forget which key that is. I have rebinds for all of this stuff. You're just making sure that you're flipping the horizontal axis when you're placing this. So then the positive on the right is now on the left for the roll. That's all you need to do when you're placing these. So, as I said, the pitch is then the same, so you can send that right from the gyro right into both of them. You don't need to change that because the pitch stays going forward. The roll at this point now needs to change because now you inverted that, so the one that's pointing to the correct direction off to the right, that can go right to it. One on top, because it's now going left for positive, you need to invert the value. And that's simply a x times -1 to flip the value. So you'll run into there, and you'll run that right into your top rotor, the roll controller for that one. The tricky part is when you're messing with the collective and, well, the collective. Since you only have 3 inputs here, you have your roll, you have your pitch, and your collective. You don't have a yaw control on these. When they're stacked vertically on top of each other, or even side to side for like a V-22, they're spinning. You'll notice that the V-22, the actual aircraft, they spin in opposite directions of each other. So they're countering the torque that they're inputting onto the airframe when they're spinning like that. While if it's a regular helicopter with just one, when it spins one way, the rest of the body wants to spin the other direction, which is why you have a tail rotor pushing to counter at that. It's called the anti-torque. I'm already spending too much time on this. So for the roll, you have that. What you want to do is for the yaw and the collective, you'll want to run through a logic block, or you can break this out if you really wanted to. It's only like 2 additional blocks. I'm sorry, 3. You still need to flip one of the inputs for the yaw because what you're doing is for your normal up and down, both of these are still in line, or that are still both pointing up. So that's fine. When you need to flip is when you want to go from left to right. And what you do is you have one yaw going in one direction and the other yaw going the other direction. Notice that when I'm doing the collective inputs are going right through and they're adding together. For the yaw, you're going to have the upper collective. It's going to go straight through, so it's still going to get a positive number, while your lower one, I haven't tried flipping this, so I have no idea. I'm assuming it would just make the controls backwards, but what you want to do is have your upper one still get straight through to your upper collective, while your lower, you're inverting the value, again, x times -1. So it's getting a minus value thrown into the addition, so it's dragging this one down to your lower collective. And as a result of this, when you're flying, jump in here. I've got electricity set to infinite, so that's not big of a deal. I'll just spin it at 20. And you'll see they're going in opposite directions. I think the computer wants to go around 50 or so. You have to hurry up and turn everything off. And I'm pitching forward, so while we're going this way. So that's not good. because they're counteracting, notice there's no other control surfaces on this, just those two, that's it. It keeps itself balanced, it doesn't spin itself out of control. And I have, I can yaw left and right. Now I'm holding the key down when I'm doing this. It says 0, but I'm holding it down. The gyro is what's balancing out, make sure it doesn't go too fast. So that's how I have that. My pitch is still, well, I'm fighting the pitch there. Your roll is still doing all that, so you're still have your rudder roll controls. And you still have your collective. Now this is the output coming from the gyro. This is not what's going to the rotors. So at least you have an idea of what the gyro is doing. So you notice it only goes up so fast and then it balances itself back out. And that positive 0.45, in which case that's so you don't just fall, or you give it some kind of lift by doing that. So yeah, that's pretty much how this thing functions. That's it. Yeah. Let's see anything else. Oh yes, for other, when you have them sitting side by side. Where's that? There we go. And this is probably the more complicated route to take. You still don't need anything on the tail here to counteract that. With the rotors being side by side, they're still counteracting each other in terms of rotation, because you still have one going the normal way and one going the opposite direction. You're still counteracting it that way. What you need to do here is have, well, your pitch is still your pitch, because you can see they're both, pitch is still going positive because it's going forward, so when you pitch that stays normal. The difference here is you're not going to use your collective to control your yaw. I'm sorry, your roll. Or yeah, your roll. Yeah, your roll. What you do is you have your pitch for both of these control your yaw. So you'll have your left rotor pitching forward, so that'll want to push this, your left side forward, and your pitch in the right pulling backwards. So you induce a rotation in the direction of this goes forward, this goes backwards. You notice it creates a rotation on the center, and you just reverse that, negative on the left, positive on the right, to spin it the other direction. Your roll will still need an invert on the one that is inverted, because your right side's going to want to go to the right. And if you do that, you're going to want to put a negative on the one that's inverted, so it's going to continue going right. Your collectives for going up and down, you'll still leave that go, because up is up for both of these. And let me think. So there's your pitch, there's your roll. I mentioned your yaw because you're going to invert the pitch for both of these to do that. It gets tricky when you rotate the engines forward. So when you're pointing this way, or when you have them going like this, when you rotate the engine forward, is why I've got a pivot in here. Yeah, I've got a pivot in place on here, on each of the ends. When you're going that way, you're still going to have your pitch being your pitch. You can still use that. That'll actually still work. You're going to want your collective control to be a simple 1 once you do that. That way it acts like a regular propeller, and it's always pushing forward. It's always pulling you forward. Now, as I said, your pitch will remain the same. That won't change. But now your roll for these control surfaces is now going to be your yaw, because now you rotated that down. That's how it's going to go. And if you want to roll with an aircraft like this, you're going to use the pitch controls on the rotor to control the yaw. I'm sorry, to control the roll. Yeah, this gets complicated. So what you're going to want to go do is as they're both pointing down, what you want to do is, if you want to roll, let's say we're going to roll to the right, which would be, a positive input for the roll axis on your controls, you'll want to put in this case, a negative because it's going up on your left side, and a positive on your right side going down. So that way you are moving down the right and going up on the left, inducing a roll. And in this case, we're rolling to the right, so we're going positive. And just invert that going the other way, which, you know, just hit the other key. Let me think. So I just went over the yaw, which you would do by inverting the roll controls in both of these. You could cut back on the collective on the side you want to turn into, because then it'll produce less force on there. I haven't done it before. It probably won't work very well, but there is that. But I do recommend you just stick to using your roll in forward flight, horizontal flight, using your roll to control your yaw. Use your pitch, can still control your pitch. And using an inverted pitch through the ad blocks, like I did with the last aircraft, to induce a roll when it's going forward like this. I showed a logic, but this thing isn't done yet. It flies horizontal, but it does not fly forward yet. I'm still working on it. I've got another one that does, but I don't want to dig into that too much. Okay, hopefully